if we're talking about 10 million people. That's one bucket of money. And that fund will go to pay for border security. The other bucket of money, the 1.5, will go to re-educate or retrain any American who believes that he or she has lost his opportunity, his job opportunity, to an undocumented. So we are retraining the American workforce if they choose to. For every one person in dignity, one American can start a new career. No one can say that the undocumented are stealing anything away from you. After 7 years in dignity, if you want to become an American, then you can go into the other path, which is the redemption path. This is very biblical because we do believe that God is with us. So we go into the redemption path for another 5 years. You pay another $5,000. You fill out more papers. You learn English. You do some civic work, and then you go back to the end of the line. No one will be able to say that you're butting the line and that you are cutting or that you're not waiting the same amount of time of anyone else who wants to become an American in a legal fashion. But in the meantime, you are living a dignified life. For those skeptics, many of them in my Republican Party, that say that we are legitimizing millions without the border being secured, as it has happened for 30 years. Listen to this. There is a provision within the Dignity Act that guarantees that no one will become an American until the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, certifies that the border is secured. The GAO and nonpartisan office has to verify that we have a completely secure border for 12 consecutive months, meaning 1 full year before anyone becomes an American. So the GOP will not be able to say, and we will not have that position, that we are legalizing people without the border being secured. This country has been trying to fix immigration for 36 years since Ronald Reagan, and many before us have tried it. But today is a new day. And if any other member in both parties wants to work with us or has a better idea, welcome. We're more than willing to work with them. In the meantime, dignity is the only solution has been presented to Congress at this hour. And I thank you. Now I have to say in Spanish. Yes. So, geez. All right. So, sorry, the English news media, we have to send a message to Univision and Telemundo and any other media network. I mean, I know, but it's, I'm used to the 2 minute and 30 second. Ok, este es un momento histórico. Dos integrantes del Congreso, una demócrata y una republicana, han decidido trabajar en uno de los temas más trascendentales y divisorios que existe en este país, la reforma migratoria. Somos un grupo de valientes miembros del Congreso que estamos aquí todos juntos, que presentamos la primera ley bipartidista y completa de reforma migratoria en los últimos 10 años. Se llama la Ley Dignidad. La palabra dignidad resuena en muchos niveles, porque nuestra intención es dignificar a muchos sectores de este país que están desesperados. Empezamos con la patrulla fronteriza. Miles de agentes que están sobrecargados de trabajo y mal pagados y enfrentando una cascada de millones de inmigrantes, droga, terroristas, coyotes durante estos últimos 2 años. Una cascada que continúa. Segundo, dignidad para la comunidad empresarial. Docenas de industrias, de negocios que necesitan manos para cubrir millones de puestos de trabajo vacantes y no los encuentran. Y finalmente, dignidad para esos millones y millones de personas que son invisibles para muchos norteamericanos, pero que están haciendo los trabajos que otros no quieren o no pueden. Los indocumentados. Ellos se merecen el respeto que nosotros le damos a nuestros vecinos, aunque no los conozcamos. No quiero que nadie vaya a confundir la palabra dignidad con la palabra amnistía, que es lo que muchos repiten a diario. Amnistía es lo que tienen los indocumentados desde hace 30 años. Carreteras gratis, escuelas gratis, hospitales gratis y servicios públicos. Bajo la ley dignidad, todos tenemos que pagar nuestra cuota. Hay 4 pilares en la ley. Primero, asegura la frontera. Utiliza las medidas más estrictas en la historia de la Cámara de Representantes con la última tecnología en el mercado. Segundo, incluye las medidas más duras y las sanciones más altas que cualquier otro proyecto de ley aprobado recientemente en la Cámara de Representantes. Y lo mejor del caso es que esto no le va a costar un solo centavo a los contribuyentes. Ya les voy a explicar por qué. Segundo, pone fin a lo que se llama catch and release. Cualquier persona que venga a este país, le damos la bienvenida, que solicite asilo y inmediatamente irá a un campus, como si fuera una universidad humanitario, un centro humanitario. Y en 60 días, en 2 meses, los oficiales altamente entrenados van a decidir su caso, si tiene mérito para quedarse o tiene que regresar a su país. No más juegos con el sistema de asilo, no más esconderse y no saber dónde las autoridades pueden encontrarlo, no más. Tercero, moderniza el sistema legal. Cada agricultor y propietario de un negocio tendrá la gente para trabajar si algún estadounidense no puede hacer el trabajo o no quiere hacerlo. Y finalmente, estatus dignidad para millones de indocumentados. Si usted es indocumentado y tiene más de 5 años en este país y no tiene antecedentes penales, no queremos criminales, queremos la gente buena, puede adquirir el estatus dignidad por 7 años. No será deportado, no va a perder su negocio, no va a perder sus bienes. Puede trabajar en cualquier parte del país, puede pagar impuestos. Y si usted está en la nómina de una empresa, le retienen 1.5 de su salario llamado el impuesto dignidad. Puede viajar a su país, puede ir a enterrar a sus familiares, puede ir por la Navidad. No hay ningún tipo de acceso a un programa de gobierno y tiene que comprar su seguro de salud. Tiene que pagar $700 al año durante 7 años, que eso es un total de $5,000 por 7 años. Dignidad lo saca de la oscuridad inmediatamente y le permite que usted pueda vivir una vida digna en este país que es la gran tierra prometida para los inmigrantes. Esos $5,000 de los 7 años representan $45,000 millones y ese fondo se va a utilizar para asegurar la frontera. Y el otro impuesto de 1.5 para reeducar a cualquier norteamericano que crea que ha perdido su oportunidad de trabajo por un indocumentado. Nadie puede quejarse de que ha perdido su trabajo por alguno de los que no tienen papeles. Por cada una persona con el estatus de dignidad, un ciudadano norteamericano va a aprender un nuevo oficio. Y si después de los 7 años en el estatus dignidad usted verdaderamente quiere hacerse americano, entonces puede caminar o ir a la vía o el camino de la redención. Esto es muy bíblico, dignidad y redención. Redención por 5 años más. Paga más dinero, aprende inglés, llena más papeles y se va al final de la fila como cualquier otra persona que quiere convertirse en ciudadano americano. Pero vive con dignidad desde el primer día en lo que está esperando el proceso. Si se quiere quedar en el estatus de dignidad toda la vida, también puede hacerlo. Hay una disposición en la ley que garantiza que nadie se puede convertir en ciudadano americano hasta que la Oficina de Responsabilidad del Gobierno certifique que la frontera está completamente asegurada. Nadie puede decir que la frontera no está asegurada cuando se están convirtiendo en ciudadanos americanos los indocumentados. Este país ha estado tratando de arreglar la inmigración durante más de 35 años. Muchos antes de nosotros lo han intentado, pero hoy es un nuevo día. A cualquier otro miembro que quiera trabajar en esto, aparte de los miembros que están con nosotros, y que tenga una mejor idea, adelante, bienvenido, podemos todos trabajar juntos. Mientras tanto, dignidad, la ley dignidad es la única solución en frente del Congreso en este momento. So I'm going to introduce Veronica Escobar, the other member who wrote this bill with me. We've been working for months, and I want to give her the opportunity to speak. And then after that, to the other members who are here, who are original co-sponsors, people who decided to give a step forward and say, I am with the dignity law. And after that, if you want to have individual sound bites, we're going to be available. Thank you once again for being here, Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Buenas tardes o buenos días a todos. Primeramente, le quiero dar las gracias a mi amiga, mi compañera María Elvira Salazar. Sin ella, nada de esto sería posible. Sin mis colegas, nada de esto sería posible. Y es un momento muy importante y histórico. I want to express my deep gratitude to my friend, María Elvira Salazar, without whom none of this would be possible, and to my courageous colleagues who have come together, also without whom none of this would be possible. But we stand here humbly at the foot of the United States Capitol, in front of all of you, in front of our country, saying the time has come. It is long past time that Congress take action. As my colleague, Representative Salazar mentioned, there has not been a bipartisan comprehensive immigration bill put forward in any serious way, especially in the House, for a decade. We haven't seen movement on immigration reform in over 30 years. Meanwhile, the situation that many of us have been witnessing over a number of years has grown more dire. And I want you to know there are real consequences for congressional inaction. Communities like my own in El Paso, Texas, communities along the southern border, and now communities even far away from the southern border have felt the impact of congressional inaction. So those of us who are up here have said, we take our jobs seriously, we take our roles as legislators seriously, and we know we have an obligation to act. And I want to echo what my colleague María Elvira Salazar said. If there is anyone who has better ideas, we want to work with you. If there are folks who want to contribute to the solution, we welcome you with open arms on both sides of the aisle. The only way our country is going to adequately meet the challenges before us is this way, in a bipartisan manner, with true compromise. Because waiting for either side's idea of what is perfect is exactly what's gotten us into the situation we face today. Neither side can afford to continue to wait. Otherwise, communities, again, like ours, continue to pay the price. I want to frame this for you in the way that we approached it and that we see it, because it truly offers something incredibly unique and something that is different from previous, even bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bills. In my view, this tackles three important challenges that we face today. The first is we address the tens of millions of people in the country who are undocumented, but who continue to work in small businesses, middle-sized businesses, big businesses, and are a part of our economy, whether you like it or not. And they are a part of our communities, whether anyone likes it or not. And so this ensures that we address an issue that Congress has punted on for decades. Second, it reforms outdated border processes that have exacerbated the humanitarian challenges that we are seeing. My community of El Paso has been all over the media, really not starting, but some of the most dramatic moments were in December, when we had hundreds of migrants sleeping on sidewalks in below freezing temperature. A few weeks ago, that number was in the thousands. And we rely on the goodwill of communities for what is a federal obligation. That is unjust, unfair, and it is not humanitarian. This bill reforms those outdated processes so that communities like El Paso, Brownsville, New York City, Chicago have a federal partner that assumes the responsibility that it should, and that it should have had over decades. It also reforms systems so that we don't have law enforcement agents like the United States Border Patrol performing humanitarian tasks. That's what's happening today. We are pulling men and women who are either members of OFO or Border Patrol and having them perform humanitarian tasks that should be handled in a modern, humane way. And in order to expedite the process, one of the things that is so critical and has never happened before is that the expedited asylum process, 60 days, will be guaranteed through due process. So we are working to ensure through this bill that legal representation will be available to all of those asylum seekers. And in addition to that, we open up legal pathways, because part of what has collapsed our asylum system today is that many people believe, and in fact it is true, they have only one line to get into. A border that is better managed with integrity comes not just with added funding for security, but it comes with legitimate legal pathways that people can get into, so that we truly preserve asylum for what it is intended to be, a beacon for those who are fleeing persecution, not poverty. That's what we are seeing today, mostly in communities like my own. And there is a role for those individuals through other legal pathways in this bill. Finally, it addresses challenges in this country, addresses the border, and thirdly, it goes beyond our borders. Because what we are seeing today, and in fact what we have been seeing for a very long time, is those paths through countries south of us have become well-worn. But they've also become controlled by cartels and human traffickers. And the stories that I hear regularly from migrants are horrific. And they universally horrify all of us. The way to address that is through in-country processing centers where migrants can be triaged and the determination can be made by United States personnel and NGOs about which legal pathway individuals can and should pursue, whether they merit refugee status, or if none of the above, they need to be aware of the high hill there is to climb for true asylum claims, so that they have the information before being wooed by human traffickers and cartels who frequently use misinformation and lies in order to entrap vulnerable populations. This will get people out of that iron grip of those human traffickers and onto potential legal pathways south of us. This bill represents a breakthrough, a true breakthrough, and a true compromise. And again, if we continue to wait for the perfect, we will continue to wait decades into the future. The challenges will get much worse, and we will have abdicated our responsibility and not performed our roles as serious legislators. I look forward to the conversations that we have going forward. I am so proud of the courageous group that has embarked on this journey together. And I want to thank all 6 of them, and as of last night, a 7th, the OG 6, although now we have a new OG, we're all women, by the way. Of course, Maria Elvira Salazar, we first worked together on the American Families United bill, which is in this piece of legislation. Kathy Manning and Hillary Skolton on the Democratic side, Jennifer Chavez Colon, Lori Chavez DeRemer on the Republican side. We started, as of last night, all women. Mike Lawler, welcome. We're happy to welcome you.
And courageous man.
That's right. That's right. With that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Representative Gonzalez Colon.
Thank you. First of all, I want to commend Representative Maria Elvira Salazar for actually putting this together with Representative Escobar. We know about immigration, everybody speak about it, but nobody do anything about it. This is the first serious bipartisan bill that has been presented in the House during this Congress, and actually I really believe that this bill really got the chance to get into law. I want to commend all of them, and I believe that today is a proof that we can get bipartisan consensus on solving and achieving an immigration reform in the United States. First of all, we cannot ignore the fact that illegal immigration is an all-time high and that Congress hasn't passed any bill since the reform of immigration in 1986. And I think since then, at that time, there were just under 3 million people obtained legal status. Today, we have a much larger program. We have 12 million people living in the shadows and a system that is unworkable for them and for the United States. And we need to fix it by promoting fair and legal immigration and restoring dignity for those who are already in our country. The dignity or proyecto dignidad that we are introducing today take into account the contributions of all the immigrants in our nation, including dreamers, and to our country by granting them legal protections to remain in the United States if they meet, and you saw the harsh conditions and the very restrict conditions that are imposed in this bill. Me siento bien orgullosa de que la congresista María Elvira Salazar haya estado dando esta pelea no solamente dentro de nuestra conferencia republicana, sino también en el Congreso buscando trabajo bipartita, en este caso con la compañera Escobar y con todos los que están aquí, para que se pueda discutir seriamente alternativas reales para solucionar el problema de inmigración. No solamente en términos del estatus de los inmigrantes, sino también de la seguridad en el borde de Texas y México. Yo creo que este proyecto hace todo eso, estableciendo un camino claro, definido, que no le deja la interpretación a ninguna agencia de cómo tiene que manejar los casos de inmigración en los Estados Unidos. Creo que este es el momento correcto y la mejor muestra, respaldo bipartita a esta iniciativa. Gracias, María Elvira, por movernos a hacer esto. Yo, viniendo de Puerto Rico, conozco la cantidad de dominicanos que llegan a nuestra isla de la misma manera que llegan a Nueva York y a tantas otras regiones de los Estados Unidos, y es el momento de que podamos garantizar un proceso digno a todos aquellos que quieren vivir el sueño americano.
Good morning. I'm Congresswoman Kathy Manning. I represent North Carolina's 6th Congressional District. I'm here today alongside a bipartisan group of phenomenal women and one brave man to introduce the Dignity Act of 2023. As others have noted, it has been far too long since Congress has passed comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform. The last time we did so was 1986, almost 40 years ago. That was before we had cell phones, before we had laptop computers, before we had the workforce shortage that we know we are facing today. We know our immigration system is outdated, we know it's overloaded, and we know it doesn't serve our country's needs. Our businesses deserve better, asylum seekers deserve better, dreamers deserve better, our country deserves better. We hear the common refrain that we're used to hearing on both sides, that we need immigration reform, but that is where the agreement ends. We're here today to prove that we can reach agreement. The Dignity Act finds common ground between Republicans and Democrats' priorities on immigration. It creates bridges, not walls, where there have previously been gaps between our policy stances. It uses tough but creative measures such as technology, increased personnel, and the creation of new processing centers to secure the border and relieve the pressure of the humanitarian crisis on our border towns and our larger cities. It also addresses the dire need to speed up the asylum process and treat people seeking asylum in a humane manner by allowing them to seek legal pathways to the United States without making the dangerous journey to the border and putting money in the hands of cartels. It offers a good pathway to long-term status for dreamers as well as others who have been in the U.S. and contributing to our economy for many, many years. It addresses the outrageous wait times for people who have applied for legal immigration visas but have been waiting for 10, 15, 20 years because of the per-country caps. And it allows family members to visit their relatives in the U.S. for important events like weddings and funerals. This bill creates a streamlined process for agriculture workers and their families to come to the U.S. to work, whether seasonally or full-time. And it opens the H-2A program to new agriculture industries that weren't able to access it before. And significantly, it makes the American workforce more competitive by ensuring that we can retain talent. Talent our great universities educate, particularly in STEM and medical fields, rather than sending them home to compete with us. And it invests heavily in the American workforce with the revenues generated by the bill. I was an immigration attorney myself, and throughout my career, I have worked to help people pursue legal pathways to come to the United States by obtaining visas for themselves and their families. I have seen the problems with our immigration system close up. I've heard from businesses across my district and across the country how difficult and outdated our immigration system is. We are in a competitive world. Our competitive advantage, our superpower, is that the best and the brightest, the most hardworking and the most innovative people want to come and live in our country. And we have been throwing this competitive advantage away. The time for policy change is now. On this historic day, I want to close by urging other members of Congress to join us at the table. This bill is exactly what a good compromise looks like. It will bring real improvements to our outdated, broken system. I welcome others to come with their thoughts and be prepared to put their partisanship aside to make real change. It is more than past due. Thank you. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Representative Lawler.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues, especially Maria and Veronica, for really pulling this together in a bipartisan way. And you know, the Republicans are wearing blue, the Democrats are wearing red, and we have purple. But I think that sends a message.
That's right.
And it sends a message because both parties have failed to deal with immigration reform for 36 years. I was born in 1986, not to make anybody feel old, but I was born in 1986. We have not had comprehensive immigration reform or any meaningful immigration reform in 36 years. It's unconscionable. And both parties are to blame. And it's going to take both parties coming together to solve this. We are dealing with a major humanitarian crisis at our border. And it is not just impacting border states and border communities, it is now spilling out into every community in the United States. New York City has taken in over 65,000 migrants since this crisis has escalated. They cannot sustain it. They cannot sustain it. They are now looking to house migrants in communities such as my district, north of New York City. And it is a real challenge. But the only way that we're going to find a solution is if we find compromise. And if people are willing to work together to secure our border, to deal with the 11.5+ million people who are here undocumented and bring them out of the shadows, and to fix our broken legal immigration system. My wife is an immigrant. She came to this country over a decade ago in search of economic opportunity and a better life. She came by herself. She has created a life for herself here. We're raising our 1-year-old daughter. My wife became an American citizen 2.5 years ago. When I proposed to her, I took her to Ellis Island, where my great-grandparents came through, Italian and Irish immigrants. I saw my great-grandfather's ship manifest. And then I took her to the Statue of Liberty and I proposed there. Because the hope of this country is based on the people who come here and who make this country what it is. We are a nation of immigrants. Our country has been built on the backs of immigrants, and it will continue to flourish with immigrants. But we have to have a process by which people come. And we have to have a legal process for them to do it. And so, yes, we need to secure our border. Yes, we need increased border personnel. Yes, we need to utilize new technology. But we also need to increase court personnel to hear these asylum cases in an expeditious manner. 60 days as opposed to 2 to 3 years at minimum. You want people to be able to come here to work. Immigrants contribute to our economy, to our culture, and to our communities. We want them to do so, but we want them to do so legally. And so we all are going to have to find compromise. And as has been stated to all of my colleagues, I'm sure there will be outrage by some about this bill. What we are doing is not working. Doing nothing is not working. Doing nothing has created a humanitarian crisis at our border. Human trafficking, women and children being raped, or worse, killed. Drug trafficking. Drugs pouring across the southern border, killing tens of thousands of Americans a year. This is outrageous, it's unacceptable, and it requires Congress and the President to work together to find a solution. That is why we are here today, and I want to thank my colleagues, especially Maria and Veronica, for working so hard on this bill over the last 2 years plus to really find some compromise and some bipartisanship that, frankly, the American people are longing for. They're tired. They're tired of the infighting. They're tired of the nonsense. Let's actually do something to move our country forward and make this work for everybody. So thank you.
Thanks to you. Finally.
And finally,
Yes.
my colleague from Michigan, Hillary Skolton.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Hillary Skolton from Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. This bipartisan group standing here today sends a clear message. We are ready for workable solutions on immigration. We're coming together across the aisle and from across the country to make something very clear. Common sense, comprehensive immigration reform is not just a pipe dream. Quite the opposite. It's possible. It's bipartisan, and it is here in the Dignity Act. Our communities and our country cannot wait any longer. As an attorney who has worked on immigration issues for close to 2 decades, from enforcing our nation's immigration law at the nation's top law enforcement agency, the United States Department of Justice, to working with communities at a legal aid organization back home in Michigan, to making sure that families have dignity and respect, are protected, to making sure employers have the workers that they need. I know this system. I know what works. I know what doesn't. I've seen what patchwork and reactionary immigration policies can do to families and communities, to our national security, and to our border. Our broken immigration system is a national security threat, an economic and workforce emergency, and a humanitarian crisis. This is Congress's issue to solve. And the women and men gathered here today, we're raising our hands to solve it. We have decades of experience, from practicing immigration law to living and serving in border communities, and coming from immigrant families and families with immigrants in them. This bill is not perfect. Let me say that again. This bill is not perfect. The minute it's released, we will hear an uproar from the right and the left about all the things it does and all the things it leaves undone. But we cannot let the illusion of a perfect bill prevent us from doing what is right and good for our communities and our country. This bill will make our communities and our country safer. It will bring our workforce into the 21st century and bring dignity to millions of hardworking families already living here and making our country a better place. And what's more, when we pass the Dignity Act, it will show us that we can work together on immigration. That's why I'm so proud to be an original co-sponsor of the Dignity Act. We're introducing solutions to the issues our neighbors have been pressing Congress to address. Pathways to citizenship, workers to round out our workforce, border security, and so much more. I'm calling on Speaker McCarthy and our Democratic and Republican colleagues to come together and pass the Dignity Act. Thank you so much for being here today, and we're all available for your individual questions and follow-up. Thank you.
We're going to do
Finally, okay.
one-on-ones.
By the way, we're going to get individual sound bites, and if you want to do little groups, no problem. Thanks again to all of you, and thank you to these brave men and women. We've done the work. Now God will do the rest. Thank you. Let's everything in todo el mundo. Let's see one language, two languages, Spanish together and then English together. Fantastic job. It's such a great job.
Oopsies.
Olis.
Hemos hablado con ellos, ¿no? Están conscientes que han visto, ustedes están diciendo que